So let me start with the pre-existing challenges, and I will stay high level, and the team will also get a little more in some of these. You know most of them. First is the slowing of the growth and the poverty rising for the third consecutive year. Persistent inflation that is eroding household income, low revenue mobilization, and rising financial sector stress. All of this also contributing to a stalled investment and job creation. So you may remember that we launched last November our poverty and equity assessment that showed that since 2016, the pace of poverty reduction has slowed down and the economic growth has been less inclusive. And in particular, the wages of low-income workers have not kept up with prices, which has further eroded their purchasing powers. Another important finding of that report was the reversal of the progress that Bangladesh had made in terms of women's economic participation, so the female labor force participation, that has gone down from 42.8% in 2022 to 38.4% in 2024. So this is a structural setback, and we see millions of women pushed out of manufacturing and wage employment. So more generally, the economy is not creating enough jobs, but in particular not enough wage jobs for women, in particular in urban area, and in particular for women with tertiary education.
একমাত্র স্মার্ট সিটি বসুন্ধরা আধুনিকতায় এক ধাপ এগিয়ে।
Now, in terms of the precondition, to some extent, there has been some easing in terms of external pressure, in particular thanks to remittances, but the buffers remain thin, and the risks are firmly tilted towards the downside. So that was the scene setting. Now, because of these thin buffers, the Middle East conflict is adding an element of risk, and the global uncertainty is really compounding the pre-existing challenges and structural issues. So in this context, we are, of course, and as is everybody, looking very carefully at the development, and the news on the 15-day ceasefire may reduce a little bit the short-term uncertainty, but we need to see what's going to happen, and we expect also a lag in terms of market reaction. But what has already happened means that some of the element of the recovery and some of the element of the risk are likely to stay beyond that. So we see different potential implications, in particular if the uncertainty remains or if the conflict is not resolved, with different transmission channels. So obviously inflation, with already sticky inflation, the reduced fiscal space, including because of rising subsidies, in particular linked to energy, and a weaker current account. So the team will go a little more in detail on that, but these are the elements that we are watching very carefully. And all of this is also affecting the poorest households through higher living costs, weaker labor demand, and greater vulnerability to service disruption. So we see the expected poverty reduction to slow down in FY26 compared to what would have happened otherwise. Now, in a context of thin foreign exchange reserve and buffers, tight fiscal and monetary condition, and a fragile banking sector, the capacity to absorb such shock is limited, as well as the capacity to reduce the impact on people, in particular the most vulnerable.